On the road, in the gym, at a coffee house. No matter where you listen, this is Prevention Perk. I'm Steve Miller with Mid-America PTTC. It's time to perk up our prevention efforts. My guest today is Kendra Tapie, who serves as the Region Director of Prevention at Serenity Foundation of Texas, managing 3 prevention campuses in Abilene, Wichita Falls, and Weatherford. Kendra is passionate about training and using her experience to equip, refresh, and encourage others to be more effective in the prevention field. She helped form a teen recovery group for students under the age of 18 and is part of the Texas training cadre with the Human Health Service Commission. She has a degree in public speaking and a master's in counseling and human development, and is an advanced certified prevention specialist. In 2023, Kendra was recognized as the Texas Prevention Specialist of the Year. Hello, Kendra, and welcome to Prevention Perk.
Hi, good morning.
I'm glad you're here. You and I recently met. You were the facilitator for the biannual ethics course that prevention specialists go through. You and our good friend Mitchell Moore, and I learned some things about you then, but I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you during this conversation. The first question I always have is, what in the world got you interested in the prevention world? How'd you gravitate towards this kind of work?
Well, when I was in 7th grade, one of my best friends, her mom came into our health classes and created her own curriculum and started talking about relationships and making choices, and went into many different things as far as health. And I loved what she did. And I just thought in my mind, I want to do that one day. And I didn't really remember about that until I became into my early 20s. And I was getting my master's degree and I was ready for what I would say a more professional job. And I had just heard through a friend that Serenity Foundation, where I work now, hired people to go into schools and talk to kids. And I just thought that was exactly what I would love to do. And I went and applied for the job, and I was hired on. And within a month or so, I was in the schools talking to kids and teaching a curriculum. And I just loved it. I absolutely fell in love because I enjoy teaching. I love teaching. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy training, is just teaching other people and pouring into them what I know, and not just what I know, but facilitating conversation for learning. I think that's really fun. And basically I fell in love with it. And while I was getting my master's degree, I realized that was counting towards my internship hours. And so my thought is, well, I will do this while I get my hours. And then when I graduate, I'll become a counselor. But as I finished my master's degree, I was offered the director's position. And I was just distraught. I didn't know if I was going to take it or what I was going to do. I have my life planned out, and having some other option seemed foreign because I'm a very young adult at this time, and having to make big decisions was hard. And I just decided I'd make that decision in faith to take it and see where it led. And as I took the position, I realized how much I didn't know and a skill set I didn't have, and I had very little direction, help, training. And I had to figure out what to do. I had to figure out how to do it. And that's where my passion for prevention started, because I was now leading a group of people. And if I didn't know what was going on, I needed to figure that out. And then I needed to make sure they were trained and figure that out. And so that also birthed my whole training capacity that I didn't even know was going to start. So I might be going down a rabbit trail for all that, but that's where my passion started. And I got into something I didn't know that existed. I just didn't even know prevention was a field. And so once I said yes to it and got into it, it just captured me. And I'm here. This is my lane for my life.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I've been asking that question in some form or another for about the last 3 to 4 years. about this path to prevention and how people got here. And I would say 9 times out of 10, people are like, I don't really know. I didn't know about prevention. It's not a curriculum that you study when you're in school. And they just found themselves here. I think the thing that I've noticed of any of them, if they maybe knew it because they worked in treatment or they had some affiliation at a community level and knew about prevention, why people stick around is what you said. You became passionate about it. There's something inside us that clicks, and we're like, I didn't know anything about this, but boy, this sure is a fun place to be.
It is so fun. And I like I say this often to people in the community and friends and family. Prevention's like the tester at Sam's. You're going to Sam's Club and you know there's going to be testers and options and whatnot, but you try that garlic butter, you're going to buy it. Like you just didn't know garlic butter could be that good. And that's how prevention is. When I tell people about what we do and how we do it and what we're doing in the community, I have not met one person who said that's not valuable. We don't need that. And what that's not, they all say, I didn't even know that existed. And so that's why I'm passionate about this. Not, I wouldn't say a secret, but I'm passionate about telling people that we exist because almost everyone is intrigued. And so, when I hang out with friends or if I was just at a women's retreat a couple weeks ago and I was talking about what we do. And before we knew it, it was a 2-hour conversation. It was really late at night because they wanted to know more about it. And it's not because I'm just like to talk. It's people ask really good questions when they find out about it. And so how is that not exciting?
You're listening to Prevention Perk. The funder of this project, along with all the other products of the Mid-America PTTC, is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Although funded by SAMHSA, the content of this recording does not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA. The Technical Assistance Training Centers funded by SAMHSA offers tools, training, and technical assistance to practitioners in the fields of mental health and substance use disorders. To learn more, visit samhsa.gov/practitioner training. You lead a team of 3 different sites there in Texas. What's your role like day to day as the director of 3 different sites and the staff there? How are you leading them, and how do you kind of help your prevention field kind of move forward?
Well, I have our home site in Abilene, and then Wichita Falls was our 2 sites that we've had for 30 years. And then back in 2013, I opened up our site in Weatherford, Texas. And so with that, I have a team of 5 directors, almost 6. We're in the process of getting our 6th one onboarded. But basically, I meet with them weekly, and we're on Zoom a lot. I was on Zoom all day long yesterday. But I clock in a lot of Zoom hours and I manage our directors and make sure we're in compliance with our contracts, make sure that we have local funding coming in, and then just promoting that on a state level. So my directors promote prevention on the local level, and then I focus more on the state level. But I love pouring into them because strong administrative structure is really important to me. I think that agencies thrive when there's good support and people feel like they're doing together as a team. And so I really enjoy pouring into my staff, and that's kind of what that looks like. Is I really focus in on my 6.
Now, you made the comment that you want to make sure you're adhering to the contracts or whatever their stipulations are, and that you're getting local funding. Are you talking about local support like in the fundraising manner, or and first thing I thought is that's sustainability. How are you trying to make sure that the projects and the things that you're leading have some traction moving forward? I mean, is that what you're doing? Is local fundraising?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's sustainability. That's my 5-year focus and vision, is to continue sustainability. We have local funding now that funds 2 of my campuses, or really 1.5 of my campuses. But local funds, just like state funds, nothing's guaranteed. And so continuing to promote in the community for them to know what it is and let them know that we need continual funds to come in is important for us to grow and sustain what we're doing. So we have really good problems where we keep growing, and we're adding on, we're doubling in the next few months. So we're growing at a rapid rate, but it also takes local funds to keep it going. So that's a big portion of what I do as well. And we're putting on a car show this weekend. So having local funds continue to stay in is really important for us.
That's great, because we talk about that. I teach the SAPS training, and I know that you do as well. And we talk about sustainability, and I've done this long enough and worked with coalitions, and you talk about sustainability and they'll say, well, we're just going to continue what we were funded to do. There's no, like, you realize this took money to do this to begin with, and getting people to understand that you have to really source the local community or be very creative in some way to continue your efforts financially, because a grant is going to come to an end at some point.
Yeah. Diversifying your funds is very important. And it is cushy to get grants because you're guaranteed, 5 or however many years. But then it also doesn't give you the capacity for growth. And so what I have found is that when we have local funds coming in, that's what gives me my job to be able to have the vision and push our program forward and lead us into new and exciting things for our community, and not be confined to only what the grant says. So I always say, feed the lion. Your grants are the lion. You feed them steak, you do whatever you're supposed to do. But I found that I felt really limited in that, and I felt confined to only grants. And so Nicole Holt, she's the leader of the statewide coalition in Texas. She's the CEO there. She said something to me early in my career, and she said, Kendra, you need to learn how to feed the lion. And I did. I was like, okay, so I make sure the state of Texas is happy. We get everything in right and perfect, and dot the I's and cross the T's. But then that's where job crafting comes in. And I look at myself and say, okay, what is my skill set? What makes me excited? What are my values? And how do I want to make my job the place I want to be to? So I don't feel like I'm at work. I don't feel like I go to work. I don't. I have joy. I'm grateful. I love the people I work with, because I have that authority and I have that ability to decide how I want to set the culture of my day and how I want to set the culture of my agency. Who else is going to make that decision? And so I find that job crafting myself and finding out what my values are helps me decide how I want to move the program, because those are my strengths. And then I hire the people that the things I don't like to do, I hire them to do those things, like measures and numbers and data. And, I like it, but it doesn't make me excited. So I like to hire people to do the things I don't like to do.
Well, it's easy to see. I'm reading your bio, and then just the brief conversation we've had. You're very passionate about workforce development, and you and I spoke briefly before we pushed record that that's really critical in our industry right now, is building the workforce of prevention. And that's how you and I first got connected. Mitch said that you're really passionate about transformational leadership. And so I'm curious, tell me what transformational leadership in a nutshell is, and how do you use that style to build the future of prevention?
Basically, it started when I got my minor in college in leadership, and people asked me, what did you learn having a minor in leadership? And I said, I learned that being a follower can be a really good leader. And I'm always going to replace, if I'm leading something, I will always replace someone to take my position. And then I found out what transformational leadership was, and I realized, well, that's what that is. That's exactly what that is. So in a nutshell, basically you are transforming your followers into leaders. So I know that if I were to take a week off vacation or a month off, or if something were to happen to me, I know that my program is such an oiled machine that they will thrive without me. And so I want everyone underneath my leadership to have the same authority, the same knowledge, that it's not a threat for someone to be leading or guiding, pushing the program forward. I'm the one assisting the whole process and overseeing it. And I'm trying to transform people under me to become what I'm doing. And so how do you do that is important. And there was a study from LinkedIn that found that the number one reason other than money. So people will always say they take a different position because of money. But the other reason, the number one reason they'll leave is because they didn't feel like they were being developed as a professional. They didn't feel like they were growing. They didn't feel like they were being invested in. And so if that's why people are leaving, why not do that? Why can't we, right? Why can't we invest in people who are under our leadership? Why can't we ask them what they need, ask them what they want to grow in, ask them how they want to develop and where their vision is, and why we can't help them get there?
So you're pretty transparent about this with your staff, like you onboard them, and from day one, or you're pretty much like, we're gonna help you grow here, and that relationship is pretty transparent.
Yes, and we started at the interview. So at the interview, we have the applicant teach a lesson, and we provide feedback. It's positive feedback. We're not going to just tell them all the things they did wrong, but it's positive, and we just tell them from day one that that's the type of culture we have in our program. Is we want you to be moldable and open and willing for growth, because that's how we'll sharpen each other and get better. And we want that process to be ongoing. And so they were surprised, because we have end of semester evaluations, and now we tell them what it's going to be, but some people get really nervous about getting their evaluation. And then they come to the evaluation and they say, oh, that was amazing, because they don't realize that we're having them evaluate us as administrators. How can we lead you better? What are your needs? How can we assist your growth? And then we have a growth plan. So we actually try to job craft and have a plan of where they're going, because my vision is that if you were to leave the agency, I want you to say that was the best job, and that was the best work culture, and that Serenity House invested in them. And I think job satisfaction is high for us.
You've used the term job crafting twice. So explain to me what you mean by job crafting.
So let's say I have someone who's really connected to the military, very passionate about that. Then we try to talk to them about, what are your contacts? Who do you know in the community that we can create presentations or lessons, or what are your dreams? What would make you excited to come to work? And how can we let prevention fit in all of that? I have a director now that she used to be a band director. And so that is a unique skill set. So how can we use that in prevention, so that way you're still doing what you love, but it's also very much a part of prevention work. And so we have a lot of intentional conversations to fit puzzle pieces to help people craft what they like. So I have, someone in social, I know that sounds very obvious, but a lot of times I don't see that those conversations are intentionally happening in the workforce. And so it gives people, I think, permission to dream about where they want to go and who they want to be, and just have periodic times throughout the year to talk about it. And I see that my staff are very satisfied with that.
You're listening to Prevention Perk. A podcast is like a breakout session from your daily routine. It's a unique way to perk up your prevention efforts. We'd like to hear from you. Please send your comment, topic, or guest suggestion to midamericapttc@gmail.com. I think that in prevention, it's an industry and a field where not exclusively, but it's very much still high touch. It's not a high tech place. It's a people industry. And I think that when we talk about doing things like environmental change, it really comes from I know you and you know me. You trust me, I trust you. We are thinking along the lines that we're trying to build a healthier or a better community. And you can't do that, not yet at least. Maybe AI is coming up, but it's a people thing. And I think that's why people fall in love and stay in prevention is because they have that passion that you help them identify, or they're persons to begin with, but making that connection so they're like, oh, you mean this is really all about me finding who I am and then helping to raise this prevention field together collectively.
And what's amazing, my communities are smaller, so 150,000 is the largest. So to our benefit, when we have staff that move on to that next job, we let them loose freely. Like we're like, you have permission to leave. That's okay. If prevention is not your forever, that's okay. It is my forever, but that doesn't mean it's your forever. And they go on to be teachers and counselors and in the mental health field. And the buy-in in our communities is high because they now go to these other positions and they're the ones advocating for us to be in their schools and to be in their, agencies and their churches. And so we feel like we have a community of people that when they leave Serenity, they keep working for us. And I don't mean just the agency, but they keep working for the field. And I think that's really exciting. So seeing the bigger picture, that this is not just about you coming and working at our agency for however long, but that we're training up people to go out in the community and be representatives of this field for a lifetime.
You say that I'm curious about something because you work in your organization is treatment and prevention, right?
We have the full continuum of care.
So that's interesting because I just mentioned I think of prevention as being kind of it's community based, it's people, it's all of that. But I'm seeing this happen more and more, especially like with an agency that you're representing. There's these people that are coming into recovery or into treatment and then into recovery, very passionate people who have this lived experience. And then there's this aspect of prevention. And I'm wondering, do you see kind of this hybridization where these intersect and both of these separate industries are now kind of coalescing and becoming one? There'll still be prevention and treatment and recovery, but you know what I mean? Like they represent one another and they're not siloed, they're collaborating.
Yes. And I think that now that stigma people are understanding stigma, and from what I'm seeing is that the community is more open to understand that these really are a pair together and they're not very separate entities. And so that's been really fun to watch the community's understanding of how this all works and the acceptance of that versus having it very separate parts of the continuum of care.
I interviewed a guy and I heard him speak publicly and I said, I want to have a conversation with you on my podcast. And he said, absolutely. And what got my attention, I'm a person in long-term recovery and he is as well. But he talked about when he crafted his resume. Now, he had gone to prison. He's a recovering addict. He's a felon, all of this. And in a time and place in this world, strike. He said, those are the things that I list at the top of my resume because it's a skill set that I have that no one else has. Now, it just depends on how you look at it and depends on how he's capitalizing on it now. And he said, what's interesting is the same sheriff that arrested him and saw him go to prison was the same sheriff that called him and said, there's an interesting opening that I think you're qualified for, and it's in the harm reduction field.
Wow.
Now that doesn't happen in you know what I mean, in reality, so to speak, but it's reality. And that's happening right now. And I think it's because people are recognizing people do change. Stigma is a real thing and we can reduce that. And because of the strengths and uniqueness of different people, it's going to build a stronger community. At least I have faith in that. It sounds like that's kind of where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I know you trained the ethics that I was in, you and Mitch. You also do the advanced prevention ethics. You do SAPS training, other trainings that you do. Are you always working with your staff to do kind of those, the criteria is we have to know SAPS, we have to do the prevention ethics and all of that. Are you looking for them to find that skill set, like you said, a band leader, and then here's a way for you to learn a training, or here's a training that I've heard about? Are you trying to help them really find those skill sets as well and really build on those when it comes to training aspects?
Yes, if they're interested, I have usually two or three at a time that express interest in being a trainer, and then there's some who that's not for them and they really like working with kids. I find that some people really enjoy adults and then some really enjoy the kids. I love the adult side of it, but I love both. But in this season, I enjoy the adults. But yes, I have some that enjoy. I have one in Wichita Falls that just received the position to become a part of the Texas cadre, and so he's been trained as a SAPS trainer and has just taught his first SAPS training this past month. And so we're working on developing him into that skill set and representing what he knows. And he's been in the field, a good amount of time. He's a veteran, so it's exciting to see staff want to step into that role. And there's lots of opportunity, even if they don't want to teach a SAPS training or an ethics training. If there's some kind of other topic that they want to talk about, we do a lot of in-house trainings. So we do a lot of presentations for each other and sharpening each other. And I find that a lot of them really like that process and get to train one another there. We're going to try and do a Zoom three campus-wide Zoom training where we're all training each other and each take different sections or topics and do that. So they enjoy that. And then if they want to apply to be a speaker at the Texas annual training or the annual prevention meeting that we have, they can do that as well. So we try to provide as many opportunity as possible, and some take it and then some are okay with not.
Yeah, that's really great because it goes back to that whole thing. I kind of like finding your why in this work and really helping to build that out and capitalize on it. And I always think we're busy going out into the community and at a coalition level talking about the strategic prevention framework and trying to help these volunteers and community leaders to understand how effective prevention works. It's not often that we come back to the office and we're training ourselves about how to be an effective coalition. You know what I mean? And it's refreshing to hear that you're kind of approaching it like that. It's like learning from the inside out and then being able to teach that, because we need the skills as well to be able to then translate those skills to the volunteers that are on the ground.
Absolutely. I mean, and to run meetings, you got to be good at running meetings. You got to learn how to do it. You need to be sharpened how to do it, because people don't like to go up to meetings that aren't productive. So we need to talk about how productive is this? How can we do this better? How are we helping people connect with each other before the meeting and after the meeting? Because we know that's people's favorite part of the meeting is the connection part. And so just making sure that everyone feels confident and competent and that they're growing in that ability. I see that they come to the office and feel fueled up, if you will, and they're able to go back out there in the community.
Well, I think that's interesting in some of the mentoring opportunities that I've had, especially if they're younger individuals, maybe coming right out of college. It's maybe their first job and they're not sure what they're looking for or looking at or getting into. And they'll go to these coalition meetings and they're a prevention specialist and they'll feel like, I'm young. I don't know as much because, the mayor's there, or the chief of police is there, or the United Way director or whatever. And I said, the model of a coalition is really it's a great equalizer. Everybody's there together to pool their strengths. And I said, for that brief moment, you're just as capable or competent as anybody else in the room because you are now the prevention specialist. You're bringing a skill set that they're not thinking about or they may not know about. And that's what I like about a coalition is nobody's really in charge, so to speak. It's not going to be effective unless everybody has a part to play in it.
Yes. And talking about that and giving everyone that permission, because some people don't know that that's their role, and talking about that. Hey, director of United Way, we need you. You are so important. And, what can you tell us today? Like, how can we learn? And just facilitating those conversations to empower people to share and to be a part of something is just really fun.
You're listening to Prevention Perk. If you've enjoyed this conversation and would like to learn more, our guest recommends Leadership, A Communication Perspective, a book by James McGregor Burns. This book helps distinguish the difference between a transitional versus transformational leader and can be found wherever you purchase books. Also, there are links in our show notes for additional resources on this subject. It's been a great conversation. I always like to give people the final say, if you will. You're the sage on the stage for this one, Kendra. So is there something we haven't talked about that you're like, I really want the audience to know this before we go?
I would say knowing your own identity in any field you are, if it's prevention, if it's treatment, if it's peer recovery, wherever your sphere of influence is, knowing who you are and what makes you excited, what makes you passionate, what your giftings are, and really leaning into that is going to help you excel in what you do. And if you're in a field that you like and you think it's fun, but you don't feel like you're confident in your identity or what those strengths are, I think that sometimes people can get burned out a lot faster because they're doing something that they can, but that's just not super passionate for them, or they're not as, confident in it. And so I would say knowing your identity in your business, not just a person, but your giftings and your skill set. So for me, I know that I like to work in teams. I thrive in teams. I have really good team setup. And when I work individually, it's okay, but I really excel with teams. And so I try to set the culture and I try to set the things that I do based on my skill sets. And then whatever I don't have the skill set for, instead of comparing myself to someone else or looking at someone else who's doing something, I realize that we're made different and that's okay. And I want to hire someone different than me. I want the person who is better than me in Excel, right? Like Excel is not my favorite friend. For some reason, that's just that I have a weakness there. But I'm going to hire those people that are different than me, that have those skill sets. And I'm not going to feel inferior or like they're a threat. I want to pull your skill set in and I want to bring you in so we can do this together and be stronger as a team. So I want to hire to cover my flaws, if that makes sense, because when we're together, we're a strong team. So I'm very, very passionate about business identity and encourage you to start, you or anyone else, whoever is listening, to ask those questions to themselves and challenge themselves, because you'll learn more about yourself that you didn't know.
My guest on this episode has been Kendra Tapie. You'll be able to find some links to connect with her in our show notes. Thank you, Kendra, for being here.
Thank you. It was a joy.
And thank you for listening to Prevention Perk, a podcast from Mid-America PTTC. To learn more about our innovations, visit pttcnetwork.org and look under your PTTC for the Mid-America link. Remember, prevention is better together, and together, we are stronger.